Hi, and welcome to the Spiritual Awakener. This is a podcast where you will hear people talking about their turning points, their spiritual awakenings, and how they have led themselves to find ways to help you, the collective. This is a podcast where you will need to open your mind, open your heart, and be open to hearing people's stories, because you too have got a story within you and probably had just the same awakenings, but you just didn't know it yet. So if you listen to these podcasts and these shows and these episodes, and you feel drawn to tell me your spiritual awakening story, please find me at susankennard.co.uk. And in episode 1, you can hear my spiritual awakening story that led me to be of service to the collective. So thank you for joining me, and I'd like to introduce my guest today, who is called Deb Goldberg. Hi, Deb. Thanks for joining me on the Spiritual Awakener.
Oh, thanks, Susan. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And I've been on your shows and really enjoyed it. And I thought, I've got to have Deb on my show. She has an amazing story to tell. So, Deb, where would you like to start? What do you feel would be the thing that you would like to really talk about from your spiritual awakening experience?
There's several things, but I think my awakening itself is really special to me. It was pretty abrupt. I was having conflict with my son and his wife, and I didn't know why we were having this conflict. I didn't want to be in conflict with people I love. And for the first time, I started to ask, what am I doing that's creating pain in my life?
Yeah.
What am I doing? We're used to saying, somebody else is causing me pain, but I asked, what am I doing that's creating pain?
Yeah.
And I was led to a workshop by Margaret Paul, who is a beautiful coach. She's a spiritual coach. She's has something called Inner Bonding, a program that it was beautiful. So I just figured, I'm going to do this. Now, I was a therapist for 18 years, right? And I had never really gone to a workshop for myself. It was always for CEU credits for work.
Yeah.
So this was a big deal, and it was for a weekend, and I said, okay, I'm going to go. I like what this woman's saying, and I want to go find out what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
so you took responsibility. So essentially, you took responsibility for what you were attracting out in the world, which is our job, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but I didn't even understand that then. I had read one of her articles about how we keep blaming others rather than taking responsibility for our own self. And it just kind of opened my mind up. And, here I am, 56 years old, and I'm like, wow, like rockets are going off. I'm creating all of this pain inside myself. So anyway, I go to this workshop, and she has us meditate, and I had not meditated before. I've used relaxation skills with people, but not meditation. And in the middle of the meditation, and by the way, it was to meet your spiritual guide. So this was all new to me. I was not involved in the spiritual community. I was asleep.
Yeah. And you were just ready to awaken.
Yeah. So in the middle of that meditation, and she has us put us at a happy place. So my happy place is at a pool or in a water, and so all of a sudden in my mind, this imagery opens up like a movie, just playing by itself. I didn't create it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting by the pool, and here comes the man, and he's sitting next to me. And I was like, well, this is interesting. Who are you? And we weren't talking, but I could feel his energy. Yeah. And it was a man, which I later figured out was Jesus. I didn't know that at the time. I'm Jewish. I didn't really have the understanding of that. And eventually I was in the pool floating on a raft, and he got in the water with me, and my arms were outstretched, and all these wounded children, these wounded parts of me that
Wow.
needed to be healed,
Yeah.
just kind of ended up in this raft with me. And he took my arms and put my arms around all of me.
Children. Yeah.
And what I really understood, what he was telling me, is I need to heal myself. I need to heal myself. It
Being a
was,
therapist for so long, like we, similar journeys, and you think, in the traditional way of therapy, like psychology, psychotherapies, wherever it is, you think, oh, sorted, until you start to really work with what's going on truly inside, that real soul part of you. Wow. Yeah. Carry on.
yes, and that's so true, Susan.
Yeah.
You think that you've healed and done all of those things,
Oh,
but
yeah.
until you do it on a spiritual level, you've done nothing.
Feel like it's surface, and that's not to discount any therapists out there that are listening, counselors, psychologists, psychotherapists. We were that as well, right? And we held the space for people to heal, and I'm sure that it was perfect in that time. But now, of course, we're having to go much deeper. We're having to look at vibrationally what is held within us, aren't we? And find ways to do that. So yeah, it was a stepping stone, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
Let's I'm excited to hear the rest of this.
Yeah, it's a great explanation, and it's very true. So I was so overwhelmed by the love that I felt.
Yeah.
It was so profound. I had never ever felt anything like that before. I didn't understand what was happening within me. I didn't understand an awakening.
Yeah.
But whatever it was, I decided that when I went back home, I was going to use this meditation, because I thought this meditation is what opened you up, right?
Yes.
And so I started using it with all my clients.
Yeah.
And but when I went back to work, I would, like, 5 minutes before I would start work, I would give myself time to just meditate for 5 minutes, and words started to come through. And all I heard every single day was, we love you, we love you, we love you, we love you. I heard that every single day, year after year. And then it was just little special little things about my day. And so probably 2 weeks after going back to work from the workshop, I just started thinking, how come, I still see Jesus, who I wouldn't accept as Jesus. This was a whole process for me too. I still see Jesus in that meditation, and I feel him, but why are we not talking to each other? Like, why is there no conversation? Yeah. And I just heard, just say hello.
Yeah, wow.
And I said, okay. And so I looked at Jesus and I said, hi. And that started all the conversation.
Wow. Like conversations with Jesus rather than conversations with God, right? Yeah.
And so so then what was happening is, as I was bringing all my clients into this meditation, Jesus would sit next to me, prompting me of what I should do. Because of course, when you're doing meditation with someone, you don't know what's going on in their head. You don't know where they are. And so he gave me a lot of prompting, and how long I should wait, and all kinds of things, and probing with questions to try to understand where they are, to try to get them to connect to spirit. It changed my life
completely.
Completely.
Yeah. And that spiritual awakening, some people listening will be like, well, I had something similar. It might not have been the same, it will have been similar, but to hear those voices, and I remember years ago, I used to think there's a fine line between mediumship and madness. And I think there definitely is. And a lot of people have been told that they're crazy when they've heard voices. But it is definitely possible that these voices are guiding you. Obviously, if these voices are not kind and not loving for you or for anyone else, they're not your guides. They're not your spirit guides. They're not your inner guidance. but the majority of people do hear their inner guidance. Mine usually say, all is well, child, and I got that from very, very young. All is well, child. I'm like, really? And that's all I would get all the time when I'd ask questions.
Yeah.
Or I'd ask why something was happening. And it was just like, all is well. You're like, well, could you not tell me a bit more than that? But actually what they were doing was letting us know, or letting me know, that actually there is nothing for us to worry about ever. But it isn't until like your spiritual awakening and my spiritual awakening at 27, that you actually realize that you're so much more than this mind and body, right? So carry on. Yeah.
So about 2 months after the workshop and talking to Jesus regularly, I'm sick in bed with laryngitis, so I couldn't work for a week.
Yeah.
And so I'm such a I was such a workaholic that even I had to work on myself all the time. Yeah. And so I was doing like 2 different programs. I was in bed, right, with my computer, working 2 programs, meditating like for a week. And I'm so in my heart space, and I'm so wanting to know what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And I'm begging, God, please tell me what my purpose is. And all of a sudden I hear, well, are you ready to listen?
Yeah. Wow.
I was like, and this was a much different voice than Jesus.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard God talk to me, it almost felt like it was outside of my head.
Yeah.
Like it was somebody in my ear. Yeah. And it was loud. And I was like, whoa, what? I'm hearing a different voice, and it's God. And
different energy of a different kind of how can you explain it? So if people are listening and they've never experienced that, it's almost like, not like you and I and speaking to each other, but it's sort of almost like a hearing, but not a hearing in the same way. Is that? It's really hard to explain. The same as clairvoyance is hard to explain, isn't it, really?
Yeah, no, I actually hear auditory voice. Now I also hear in my heart. So like it goes back and forth sometimes. Sometimes I'm hearing all auditory, and then sometimes I'm hearing it in my heart and it's getting translated so I know what it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The first time I heard God, it was like auditory in my ear, boom. Yeah. And it rocked me. And at the same time, I started to laugh because I knew exactly what he was talking about, because I would never listen to anyone. I thought I knew everything. But I just shut down. I shut down from listening to people because of trauma that I had growing up. I didn't want to hear. Yeah. I didn't want to hear anybody because I felt like they would be hurtful. So what he said was so amazing and true. And so then there's God. Then Jesus introduces me to John the Baptist and Michael, Gabriel, and then this whole bunch of other angels, other angelic beings that needed to work on teaching me how to learn how to love myself. How to accept love. And it turned into Pandora's box just getting opened up. And everything that needed to be healed inside of me started to come up all at once. Like I didn't allow myself to feel for so long that I had shoved everything down. I didn't want to feel. I focused on work that I loved. And I just poured everything into there, and that everything's fine. So I lived in denial, and
which a lot of people do. A lot of people do. So shut down of the heart, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So and so this whole experience was like melting the iceberg.
Wow.
Melting the iceberg of my heart, that I didn't even realize that it was an iceberg. I thought I was loving.
Because you were loving, and there are people listening, that they'll say, well, I am loving and I don't have that. But it's not about who you are being in the outside world. It's about who you're being on the inside world, isn't it?
I was not being loving to myself at all. And so there was day after day of so much focused. And this would happen in meditation, doing inner child work with Jesus and God, my higher self. And each wounded little part of me, like I could have made a girls' baseball team, softball team with all the wounded parts of me that needed to be healed.
Yeah.
And then there's things that you don't even realize about beliefs that you have, and faulty beliefs and faulty ideas, and the ego. I had no idea. What is this ego thing? What is this unconsciousness? So it was like a crash course in learning, educating. I call it spiritual reparenting. I was spiritually reparented by a loving father, mother, and brother, and angels, and
what an incredible blessing.
Oh my God.
And what do you think, Deb, would have happened if that spiritual awakening hadn't have happened? What do you think?
I still think I'd be a mess inside, and I would not have the joy, peace that I have, or appreciate who I am, who other people are, of this miracle of a life. It has changed everything. It has opened my heart in so many ways, and it's still opening. It's a process.
Sure. I mean, that's it. It's our whole journey, isn't it? So if people are listening and they feel, well, I haven't had that yet, we're like, well, actually, you are that. You know, you are that beautiful soul having this human experience. You know, you are that. And so, yes, when the time comes and you're ready to listen and you're listening to this, you know, you found this podcast, you found the Spiritual Awakener, you found Deb and I, then there's no mistakes, is there, Deb? You know, you were led to do that workshop because beautifully the universe showed up and showed you what was happening in your relationships and how they were a reflection of your own inner thoughts. And so people will be thinking, oh my goodness, well, there's so many horrible people out there, but actually maybe there's a vibration of anger and resentment that's attracting those, you know, that's how we work, isn't it? Those people showing you that vibration. So to take a little bit of responsibility and say, oh, I wonder how it would feel if I didn't attract that. So looking at that real soul consciousness. Okay, carry on.
So let's see. So the first time I meant to say when I first God talked to me, he gave me a beautiful children's story.
Wow.
That I haven't put out yet.
Okay.
There's and I get for my inner child. This is very interesting. My inner child, like a 3-year-old voice, dictates children's stories to me.
Wow.
And songs. I get songs. But a year and a half.
For people to hear, Deb.
And a year and a half after I woke up, Jesus, one day, I was alone by myself for 6 weeks in Florida when I just moved, and my husband didn't get there yet. And I knew I was going to write. And one day Jesus just said to me, go get your journal. We're going to write. And I said, well, I don't really know how to write. And my English is not good. My grammar, all of that stuff. And he said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to dictate. And you're just going to write down everything I said. So over that period of 6 weeks, he gave me 3 books.
Wow.
And then
it's amazing, isn't it, to channel? Because mine was in 10 hours and you just channel, and it's not you, it's coming through you. So that's good for people that are thinking, oh, I just think writing a book, I haven't got the time or the space. Actually, there's always the time and the space. We just have to make that time and space, don't we? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was pretty profound.
Yeah.
And gave me so much higher knowledge, wisdom, divine wisdom.
Yeah.
Like I didn't understand even what he was telling me.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't integrated any of this yet.
Wow.
And then I got 3 other books. So
Incredible.
I have to put those books out as well too, but they have been growing with me.
Yes.
The 3 books have been growing with me as I have been evolving in my ascension, which I've learned is really all created by God. So that is all, the transformation happens within. You can't force yourself into transformation.
Yes.
You can't say, oh, I'm going to. Yeah.
Alignment with perfect timing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's been such a journey for me. I stopped doing mental health and drug and alcohol counseling in the way that I used to do that, because I don't feel like, I don't look at anybody as broken. Nobody's broken.
Yeah.
And I don't like putting diagnoses on people. And so I take them on their own inner journey to open up their spiritual awareness and connect to whoever they feel they can connect to, and let them be, and help them cultivate, keep going back to that relationship so that they are getting their own connection really to the divine. And for me, that relationship is, I call it a holy communion. It is being in mutual love and admiration for God, or whatever you call divine love. Everybody has a different name for divine love.
Yeah.
And having that mutual relationship of such profound love. It is like a mother, father, child type of
relationship.
It is so amazing. But as you keep going along, and it's funny, I just started reading something from Father Thomas Keating. I don't know if you've heard of him. He talks about contemplative prayer. And he was talking about how Jesus' relationship shifted from a father with God to, and I don't know much about Christianity, but it was so powerful. And that when he transitioned, it was now that he was really one with the Father, and not the father. He's one with the Father. And so I can, that relationship I feel within me keeps shifting towards that without me having transitioned to death.
And I think that's the key, isn't it, for us all to remember that, you are me, I am you, you are my children, we are all connected, and we are animals as well, so we are in that connection with everything. So God or source or the universe is within, whatever we want to call it, is within and without. So it's like a reflection of us, isn't it? So there's no separation. Right.
So you just keep going deeper and deeper into that relationship of oneness, and it is such a journey. It is your whole life. You're doing this process of actually, what I call it is, you are going back to who your origin is. You're not becoming something new. You're not learning something new, even though it feels that way. It feels like you keep awakening to more and more, but you're awakening more and more to your own self, who you already are, and remembering.
I don't think we learn anything, do we? We just remember something else. Oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. So it's not so much we're learning it again from scratch. We're just remembering it. I love that. So Deb, obviously I've been on your radio show, so tell us about your radio show so people can find you and listen to you on your radio show.
Sure. So I'm involved with Enlightened World Network. and we do a lot of, well, you can call them video podcasts because they're on Facebook
Yeah.
and YouTube. And so we do quite a bunch of shows on that together as a triad, Dr. Ruth Anderson and Terry Angel and I.
Yeah.
But I also do a show called Divine Relationship Recovery, 5 o'clock on Wednesdays.
5 o'clock, which time zone, just for people?
It is Eastern time zone.
Yeah. So
and so that's all about higher consciousness learning about your relationship with divine love, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with other people. So it covers all of those things. And I just started a show called Come to the Temple, which is, so it's more prayerful meditation. It's taking prayer requests. It is me sharing many of the different prayers I've received over the years of God talking about what he wants other people to know. So that show is on Sundays. Do a silent meditation every Sunday.
And you know what I'm seeing with that as well, kind of as a little kind of vision, is almost that would have been the times when Jesus would have sat with people and spoken to them. And I'm seeing this kind of behind you as it's almost like that's what you're doing. You know, you're doing his work. It's kind of like you're doing his work. Does that make sense to you? Because I can kind of see that, where he would have gathered and people would have gathered around him and he would have spoken.
Yes.
And that's what I'm seeing. So is that kind of how it is?
Yes, it is. He's told me that I'm walking his path, that we're walking the same path.
That makes total sense to me then. Like you're sitting on the hill where he would have sat on the hill. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful.
It is. Thank you for that.
No, that's all right. I can see it very clearly.
The difference is when he awoke me and taught me, it's more of universal love. It's not about religion.
Yeah.
And so being that I was raised Jewish and I didn't know a lot about my own religion nor other religions. So all his teachings to me and God is about universal love.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also am on Angel Heart Radio. And I get to interview lots of wonderful, awesome people, including Susan. And yeah, it is. And so highlighting people, their spiritual awakening as well. I always want to know how they got to where they are.
Yeah.
Authors, healers, all different types of
walks of life.
That people that are even though it's Angel Heart Radio, I interview lots of people that are not involved with angels, but they have their own precious gift that they're bringing to the world.
Perfect. Yeah. Similar to the spiritual awakener. So I had someone from NASA, and I have people that have had those experiences, but they weren't spiritual. They weren't necessarily spiritual. They were just awakening moments, so turning points. Yeah.
So, really, I come from the standpoint of I know that part of my work here is to help light workers.
Yeah.
To help them in their spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And it's also to awaken a lot of people, to
who they are.
To who they are, and that connection lies within them.
Yeah.
So that's what
makes sense with sort of, it's really important to have people to support us on our journey, 100%. But I think when we look outside of ourselves for answers, then probably usually we're not going to get those answers, not the answers that are right for us. And so if people are listening to this and feeling, well, I need someone to fix me, or I need someone to tell me, I would like to say, and I know you would like to say, that actually those answers, with quietness, with peace, with a coming into yourself, really connecting, you can actually find those answers. And actually, you probably already know those answers. You just didn't listen, like Deb didn't listen. It took her a while to listen.
A long while.
You know, and that's great, because it was the perfect timing. And the world now, obviously, we know we're going through this great awakening time as we record this in March, at the end of March, coming into April 2020. And it's the perfect time for people to really go within. We've had to go within because we've had to be put in physically. So we've had to experience that. And also for people to think, well, what is important in their life? So the relationships are coming up big time. Health is coming up, obviously, because of what's happening with the healing of the bodies that are happening now, to do with survival. And all those things that perhaps were taken for granted, you know, that real soul part of you that you perhaps took for granted, it might be the time to really connect with that more than ever. You know, and probably it wasn't the right time, Deb, before for you to have this awakening. You know, it will have been part of your massive plan that you didn't even know you had. Like me, I didn't know they were the cards that were on the table when I was a scientist and had my awakening of someone coming to me in the night, you know, like a dead person, essentially. Yeah. And so, you know, those kind of awakenings happen when they're meant to happen. So if people are listening now and they've had this experience, and maybe it scared them, mine did when I was 27, it definitely scared me. It was not something I was expecting. And for you, it was you know, you'd experienced life a bit more. You weren't in your 20s, so maybe you could make more sense of it a little bit, but it was still an experience that floored you.
Yeah.
Because of the way you thought. Yeah. So people will be listening to this thinking, well, I could never really, you know, be a spiritual person. I could never really understand that. Well, you are one already. You just connect with that more, and amazing things happen, don't they, Deb? I mean, our world opens up when we really start to step into our mission and really listen to that part of us. It might not be Jesus talking to you. It might not be God. It could be your angels. It could be your guides. It could be your loved ones. But to listen, if that voice is a pure voice of love, then you know that it's perfect, don't you, for you to listen to.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people, I feel guided to ask this, so what would you say to people that are having a trouble believing that we are anything more than this physical jacket that we inhabit and this brain? What could you help people with?
Yeah, and that's a perfect question, because I've talked to Jesus about that too.
There we go. We're in synchronization here with this with this conversation. Yeah, he's probably telling me to ask him.
Probably. Yeah.
I know him as Jeshua, though. I know him as Jeshua. So
yeah, Yeshua. Yeah. Yes. And that was, I guess, his Jewish name. Yes, that's his Jewish name.
Wow.
So, but what he told me.
What did he say?
What he told me about people that don't have religion, don't believe in spirituality, maybe people that are atheist or agnostic. He said that you, even if you don't believe in anything else, you do have a higher part of yourself. The higher part of yourself that might be morality. And there's a higher, like the best of you. Yeah. And so if that is what you get in touch with, is the best of you. There's a part of you that what we call is your higher self. Yeah. And that is what you get in touch with. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. And, you know, for everybody that I worked with, I do have them meet their higher self. Yeah. Because that and my higher self for me, and what you learn afterwards, you learn it is yourself. It's not something separate from you.
Yeah.
Even though you feel like all of these things are separate from you, these parts of you, but they're not. They're all one. The angels, God, Jesus, whatever image divine love shows up to you with is all one with you.
Yeah.
So, and so your higher self, it plays a huge role in helping you learn how to love, how to follow your intuition. There's
To yourself.
Your passion and compassion for yourself, your passion for life. You are actually being moved through. Like, you think that you're doing your life, but I'm telling you that divine love is doing your life for you. And it takes a while to understand that.
Yeah.
But there is already a plan for you. This has been planned out. Your life has been planned out. It's already been done. It's already finished. You've already completed this life or dream.
Just go back to that bit, right? Because some people so we get that, right? But so if you imagine, so for people listening, if you imagine that there's only now, okay, and the sum of the parts of now were from then and are coming, then the now is where you're living in the present moment. And what Deb's saying is that now that you're living in now is something that you've already created, that you have already planned, and that is quite a profound thing for us to think about, isn't it? And it takes away all the fears, all the worries. You know, my guides many years ago, I think I shared this on your show, said to me, don't worry about anything, because when you choose to pass over, when it's your time, you'll say, oh, that second of that lifetime in our linear world, that lifetime was a second. Mm-hmm. You know, so when we can think of it that way, we can look at what's going on in the world at all times and say, kind of an illusion. Mm-hmm. And it's how we respond to that illusion. Mm-hmm. Is our journey, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah.
The way you experience your journey creates more of what you're experiencing. So the more joy you feel, you're going to feel more joy coming at you. When you've experienced pain, you're going to feel more experience of pain coming at you. So
a hard thing for some people to, and that doesn't mean that if you're listening and you're in pain or you've got, you know, emotional problems, that there's anything bad about you or anything wrong about you. It's just that this being of light that you are is reflecting out, and I call it the dust, don't I, Deb? I call it the dust in your field, and the dust is just something we can brush away to see that beautiful light that is shining and always was shining. And those little bits and pieces that stop that light is the reflection of what you look at in your relationships or you look at outside of you. That is the reflection, and that's what needs to change, isn't it? That bit of dust, that belief system, that part of you that's not loving you. If your body is showing a message, then that part of you that's not loving you is showing up. So yeah,
and I believe that we're so divinely guided that whatever you need to work on, whatever you need to see, just keep showing up. Like I had to do a lot of healing with my dad. He had passed on. So my dad kept visiting me and with God, and God's like, okay, we're going to take care of this. You were going to talk to him about how you felt as a child, and we're going to work through this. And so you're not doing anything by yourself, and everything is being brought to you. Even through sexual abuse, the person who did that to me also came to me because that needed to be healed, and I needed to work on forgiveness. So you are so guided every step of the way. So even what you're seeing outside of you is a beautiful mirror of your consciousness of love and fear.
Yeah.
And even though that all there is love, you get to see the whole experience of this mirror, so that you can keep looking at, what am I thinking? What am I believing?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the fun of it. I know that if you're listening to this and you're feeling really unwell at the moment, or in pain, or there's something really difficult happening, it's sometimes hard to say that can be joy. But actually, for me, when I help people, I'm saying, just tweak it. Like, watch what happens when you change your vibration. Watch what happens when you love yourself more and you heal that part of you and that relationship that that's broken down. When you heal that, watch what happens to what shows up in your world, because it's a wonder. It's a wonder every day. And just to acknowledge as well, and what I'm kind of being guided, probably Jesus or my guides or whoever, is that acknowledge those parts that are wondrous. Now, if you're drawn to listen to this episode with Deb and I talking about this, then you will have been drawn to this because your soul knew it needed to help you hear this, without judgment, without blame, without condescending, without anything, just to say, oh my goodness, actually, yes, I'm worthy of listening. I'm worthy of loving myself. And no matter what has happened in your experience in this earth plane, with Deb experiencing her difficulties when she was younger, I had my own. Everybody who's really on this journey, there is, somebody has had something, and you're not alone with it. But what I definitely know is that doesn't have to define you.
Yes.
That what defines you is that incredible soul that has this human experience now, and it's your time to shine. So, Deb, how can people get hold of you? How can people, really connect with you?
Okay. Yeah, and that was beautiful, Susan. So beautiful and so true. Thank you. I have a website, and it is Debbie N. Goldberg, and it's GOLDBERG.com. You can find me on Facebook under Deb Goldberg or Debbie N. Goldberg, either way. And I think, well, you're in the UK, so giving my phone number is not easy for people to call, but you can always catch me on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that would be a really good way for people that are out of the country. So I know a lot of times.
But my listeners are international, so and a lot in America. So I have no distance is a barrier here now in this world.
That's true. It's very true. So I also have a phone number. It's 814-360-7664. So those are all the ways that you can get in touch with me.
And can people reach out to you if they want to sort of talk to you about what they're going through? Perhaps you can give them a 10 or 15 minute consultation, as I do, where they don't have to commit to working with you. They can just chat to you for a few minutes and just feel if it feels right. Yeah, yes, that's great.
Most definitely.
Well, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I knew I was going to enjoy this conversation, and I'm sure everybody listening is really enjoying this conversation. So thank you, Deb, so much for being here. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Spiritual Awakener. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your friends. And if you've had a spiritual awakening experience or a turning point in your life that you'd like to share with my listeners, I would love to hear from you. So please find me at susankennard.co.uk and across all social media of the same name, Susan Kennard. Lots of love to you all. Please, please go into your heart, find the answers within, and I'll join you on the next episode of The Spiritual Awakener.